All right. Well, it's just about the top of the hour, so we can get started. Thank you, everyone. Looks like we've got a great turnout of attendees. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your afternoon to join us today as we discuss the future of omnichannel with CDP. My name's Sean. I lead APAC marketing for Treasure Data. We're a CDP solution provider. And today we've got a very special guest, Chris Wiseman, the head of marketing technology from ADA, joining us today to share some insights on the omnichannel trends happening all across Asia. So omnichannel, this more and more brands and retailers and pretty much everyone is interacting with customers and more channels, more touch points than ever before. And this has really been sped up over the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything that's happened. And really how to reinvent and revolutionize the way and the experiences that we're delivering across all these touch points is a challenge being faced by retailers and brands and all kind of industries everywhere. So very much appreciate Chris and ADA's time for joining us today to share some insights from what they are seeing happen all across Asia. First, a couple of housekeeping items before we dive in. We are coming at you live today, so would love to make this an interactive session. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function. So we'd be very happy to take your questions on anything you're interested in, whether it's topics that we discuss, trends, more about CDP, case studies, and more. We are going to save some time at the end of today's session to dive into your questions. So please, if anything comes to mind, drop us a question there and we'll pick it up later in the presentation. So at the start, we'll discuss a couple questions, discuss a little bit of the background of the trends that are happening across Asia. Then we'll get into a little bit of how CDP is addressing those challenges. And then we'll take a look at some real world case studies of what customers and users of CDP are doing. So with that, we can kick the agenda off for today. So Chris, thank you very much for your time and joining us, and I'll pass the floor over to you.
Yeah, so really great to be here. Thanks so much for the introduction. So I'm Chris. I'm the head of the marketing technology business unit at ADA. ADA is sort of a data and AI company. With that, we look at sort of ROI on basically achieving ROI on brands. We do that through a variety of ways, through marketing technology, business intelligence, media, e-commerce. So today I'm going to focus a bit more on the MarTech side, but you're going to see a bit of overlap onto some e-commerce stuff as well. So with that, I'm just going to sort of get into it. So just give me 2 seconds and I will get us started. So, So I'm going to go through some trends as we've just sort of mentioned, and I'm just going to give you a sense of how, what we're seeing in the report that you'll get a download for later, and also, give you a sense of how we can help in that process. So let's get started. So I think the first piece that, I think we've sort of found as we've been sort of researching and sort of coming up with this white paper working with Treasure Data is this construct that of omnichannel e-commerce becoming sort of a new normal. And so what do we mean by this? We mean this sort of integrated approach to customers using many different channels, but also this context or convergence of digital and physical platforms. And so you'll see this as I go through some of the trends. And I think, what is this driven by? It's driven by the concept that increasingly customers, because of their purchasing journey, are going multi-channel. They're looking at both physical channels, they're looking at digital channels, and they're looking at a variety of digital channels. So 73% of all customers are using multiple channels nowadays, as from Harvard Business Review. And, so what does this mean? This means that to ensure a best-in-class experience, you need to look at how you're navigating your consumers across these different channels. And to do that, you need to look at the data. You need to look at how that data works across those different channels. How is the consumer interacting? What are they liking? What are they not liking? What can we improve? What's triggering loyalty? What's triggering conversion? What's building lifetime value? So really just sort of giving that sense of where they're at and helping them sort of get there. So what's sort of been driving this? And I think there has been this sort of natural process of this evolving. But what we found in our report was the construct that COVID has obviously massively accelerated that. And there's a couple of elements that have sort of driven this. The first one is a drop in physical stores, visiting them, right? And sort of, having that process. I mean, a lot of us have gone through restrictions in our various countries. So I'm in Singapore and, we've had a couple of lockdowns. My extended family sits in the Philippines and they've had very long lockdowns. And, different countries have gone through different restrictions, and that has sort of focused people on not just going down to physical stores. And you've therefore seen a massive reduction in that foot traffic of about 30 to 70% in Singapore, for example. In parallel, what we're also seeing is the context of people sort of experimenting with e-commerce, sort of looking at it as a way to enable their growth. So it's not just a negative thing caused by COVID, but it's also, I've got a store in a particular city. How can I touch other cities without being in that city? How can I touch different consumers who may not be able to visit my store? So a lot of companies have been experimenting with e-commerce as a channel and looking at how they can actually grow that. So a good example of this is the sort of B2C segment in Thailand, which has been doing a lot more sort of e-commerce and is seeing a lot of that online revenue growth in 2022, so about 6.1%. And obviously underlying all of this is the construct of people generally, those people who don't like digital, or those people, who are learning, who want to sort of look at that, sort of process, right? They're sort of either taking that leap or they're being forced to take that leap. So maybe they're realizing that they're going to get more convenience, and that convenience level is now higher because of some of the restrictions they've gone through the last couple of years. Sometimes they've realized it's their only choice. If they want to get something, they need to go online now. So it sort of forced that element of consumers doing this. And then once they do it, because a lot of companies are actually mature and can actually do it, it changes their behavior. It changes how they're working, how they're buying stuff, how they're interacting. It's sort of bringing this, the fact that they're used to digital, and it's affecting all age groups. So I think a lot of what's driven this is the fact that both, middle-aged folks, older folks, or even folks who didn't like digital are sort of exploring it for the first time and sort of getting more embedded with it. As they're doing this, we're also seeing a situation where a lot of brands are now looking at a much more multi-channel approach. So I think, as the bar is being raised, as more people are coming into it, as it's becoming a more viable sort of channel or opportunity, we're seeing that concept of digital e-commerce being more multi-channel in nature. So, I think when this sort of started in Asia, like maybe a decade or before that, people would look at a .com. They usually look at a Magento site, that's now obviously Adobe and stuff. But obviously, as this evolved, they've gone into things like marketplaces, your Lazada and your Shopee. And then increasingly, they're looking at stuff like Shopify. And then they're also looking at other channels like live commerce, which is sort of coming up, and chat commerce. So this is even leading within the digital realm of just the e-commerce piece. It's leading to a very different multi-channel approach to how you tackle e-commerce. And we're seeing this again through the data that's happening in Southeast Asia and broader Asia. So chat commerce is going to be, a $47 billion business within the next year and a half. Shopify has seen a massive increase in the amount of business that's being done. So even just a year and a half ago, it's nearly a $40 billion piece, and it's growing at over 100% a year, and that's just going to continue. And then also we're seeing a lot of, as is traditionally the place in Southeast Asia, where they do their own stuff, but they also take, innovations not just from Australia or the US, but China as well. And China has done a lot of live commerce stuff, and it's been very successful. And people are sort of experimenting now in this part of the world of how can they bring that to be here, right? How can they sort of bring that to life? Because again, that's becoming very successful as well. I mean, in China, you're looking at 3 out of 10 were doing, we're looking at sort of live streaming. There was a lot of people are engaged, and in the last couple of years, it's been a significant percentage of sales, close to 9%. And so it's having that sort of impact. And there is that ability now to experiment with that. So, you're seeing those brands embrace the digital channel. You're seeing them do a very multi-channel approach. So what does this mean? Does this mean bricks and mortar is, is finished. Well, absolutely not. It's very much key. And I think what's very interesting, especially in this part of the world, is we're seeing that really nice integration between what are, physical and the actual store, but also digital as well. Also, how do you combine the two? But I think also you're seeing that construct of e-commerce progressively being able to play a bigger sort of role in this process. So, one of the things we're seeing is that, even just by the end of last year, it's a $67 billion industry, and there's about 330 million shoppers. So that's a big deal. It's a lot of business that you can go after. And, I think the reason we've been focused on retail and, fashion and stuff like that is that fashion, that apparel sector, generally retail is a big chunk of that. It's nearly 25% at 15 billion. So again, there's this quite substantial opportunity that can sit alongside your bricks and mortar store and give you that really good opportunity to grow your business if you're willing to sort of get your hands dirty, essentially, right? And what we're sort of seeing in the report, and you can obviously down this load later, is that a lot of what's driving this is the behavior of this physical to digital, how people are mixing these channels together to create new ways of doing payment. So maybe they're buying online but collecting in store. Maybe they're trying something in store but then getting it delivered to them instead of actually walking out the shop with it. Maybe they're doing everything online. Maybe they're recommending stuff to friends, but there's now so many different ways you can purchase that blend those different mediums together that becomes sort of very powerful. And there's a lot of opportunity here to innovate in the market and do something quite different. And obviously, as you pull this together, what we've also found is that brands are now sort of taking notice of this. So Ernst & Young, did a survey end of last year, and they found that 60% of businesses in Southeast Asia are sort of looking at this now as an area. And, obviously, as you do this omni-channel piece, it's all about driving loyalty and driving conversion. Those are sort of the two things that you're doing. And there's a reason for this. The first one, essentially, is that if you have this omni-channel experience, you're building loyalty. You're building a stronger stickiness with your client. The reason you're doing this is it's more personalized, it's more relevant to them. You're giving offers that's more likely to get them to convert, etc. And then that then becomes the nice logical segue, which is if your customers are more loyal, if they're more engaged, then they're much more likely to purchase your stuff and actually get a long-term relationship with you. So the other thing we've been finding as well is that if you're using more channels, not just in the e-commerce space that we were mentioning earlier, but broader across your marketing mix, we're seeing a much higher channel conversion as well. That obviously what that does very nicely is drive that conversion and drive the business. So obviously, if this is becoming more normal and people are becoming more digital, and we're getting more channels, and that's allowing you to drive loyalty and drive conversion, all of this fundamentally is being driven by data. And the CDP, therefore, becomes critically important in this process because the CDP is essentially pulling data from all these different channels, integrating digital and physical, and driving this ability to constantly improve the customer experience. So again, we see this through the data, which is, I think any company you've talked to for the longest time would talk about customer experience and competing on that, but now it's becoming a reality. 2/3 of companies are actually competing on this, up from 36 in 2010. PricewaterhouseCoopers found that, essentially if you're having a bad experience once, you probably got a 1 in 3 chance of leaving the brand. And if you leave it, you might never come back. And then if you have 2 or 3 negative experiences, you're going to lose 92%. You've got a 92% chance of sort of leaving, right? And so this therefore becomes really important from both a positive upside perspective and then also a very negative perspective as well. So from a positive perspective, it becomes a really great way to compete, a really great way for you to look at new channels, new experiences, unique ways to engage your customer, create a personalized experience, boost the loyalty, boost their conversions, buy more different products, boost their lifetime value. But on a negative perspective, if it goes wrong, it goes much worse, and you're much more likely to lose your customers in this sort of scenario. And CDP obviously supports in that process by closing those gaps and giving you that upside. So how does this sort of come together? And I think this is one of the reasons why, we're sort of bringing this sort of today. And I think Sean is obviously going to take you through some case examples later to sort of bring this more to life. But typically, if we look at ADA and we look at, the MarTech business unit, what we do ultimately is we work with brands to create, run, and optimize your customer experience. And if you look at that from an omnichannel e-commerce experience perspective, what that means is we would help you create your e-commerce brand.com. We would work with a broader ADA and build a marketplace in Shopify or Lazada. We would build chat commerce capability so you can engage with your customers and make the customer service work better. We'd also work within our broader community to build live commerce, and we'd integrate with your POS. And these are just some of the channels that we can sort of build with you and integrate, right? And then obviously as we build those, and we build those based on a product or an actual experience, we then look at a variety of programs that we can run around those channels that we build with you or optimize with you, right? And those are things like our media, where we can obviously target that via products. This is SEO, SEM, but it's also more MarTech-centric stuff that's becoming, it's sometimes not sexy, but it's also very important. Things like customer service to ensure that when you do get that angry customer, you can turn them around. When you've got, a good CRM system, you can actually nurture that customer, have a long-term relationship with them. The conversion rate optimization to make every part of your journey work better over time. The social media that extends the content you're building for the site. And then the UX UI testing so you can find out what people actually like about stuff. So when we pull all that together, all of that creates data, and that data has to sit somewhere. And at the center of that is your CDP. And your CDP basically allows you to optimize it because you're taking all this channel, because you're pulling all the data together. You can do deeper segments. You can see what's working. You can see what's not working. You can connect the physical to the digital, and you can just keep optimizing it to get more upside and reduce the downside. And so typically when we do this and we work with companies to try to achieve this, we do this to try to unlock 4 or 5 sort of key opportunities. The first one is to try to optimize how they're using their budget. So, we're going to make your marketing budget go further because we can connect the media with the platforms, the stuff we've created and the stuff we're running, and we can get more efficiency from it. So everything works better. We help companies retain because now we know who the segments are. We know what the higher value segments are. We can keep those customers longer by looking at CRM and looking at the loyalty and the nurturing. In terms of grow, we can introduce these new channels. So there's new ways to reach consumers and then connect it back to the data. And you might find that certain customers are more likely to buy on certain channels. Maybe they're going to be more engaged by chat commerce than they are by an e-commerce.com site, for example. Then there's the transform piece, which is obviously as we get data from it, we can look at what content are they interacting with. Are they really enjoying the loyalty program? Do they like promos? And as we get that, we can adjust the content, adjust the programs and further scale. And then finally, a lot of customers we talk to have multiple brands or multiple business units. And what they want to do is build profiles, customers, programs, channels, etc., in each of those different departments, but they want them to come together. They want to sell that something they've sold to one customer might actually be relevant to one of their other product lines or one of their other services or one of their other business units. And we want to use that data to cross-pollinate that, to sort of give them that opportunity. So all of that sort of comes together in sort of what I would call a unified omnichannel experience. And that's basically how an ADA and a treasure data CDP sort of will work together to sort of help brands achieve this. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass on to Sean, who's going to take you through a bit more detail on what a CDP is. And he's also going to give you a sense of some actual case studies to sort of just really give you an example of what this means in practice. So I'm just going to pass over to you now, Sean. Just give me 2 seconds. Right. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for sharing all those great insights on the trends that we're seeing across Asia, and how we can start our omni-channel journey by identifying those data sources, which there's a ton of now, unifying it. And one key piece can be the CDP. So hello, everyone. I'm Sean. I'm from Treasure Data. Treasure Data are a CDP solution provider. A little bit about us. We were founded in 2011 in Mountain View, California. Not too long after that, we opened our first office in Asia. I'm based in Tokyo. Our CDP is a bit unique. We're currently serving over 450 customers around the globe, but around half of those customers are in the US and Europe, and the other half are in Asia. And though our APAC headquarters are in Tokyo, we work very closely with ADA, Chris, the rest of the team to bring CDP, all across the greater Southeast Asia. And so, our partnership together, we're looking to help all of you on your omnichannel journey. Now, to get into the next portion of today's session, we're going to dive a little bit into more what the CDP is, and then look at some real case studies and stories of what CDP users are doing in their use cases. Just a quick reminder, after this session is complete, we are going to have a bit of a candid fireside chat with questions. So if there's anything on the top of your mind that came up during Chris's presentation or my presentation, please do feel free to drop it in the Q&A function, and we'll be very happy to pick it up shortly. All right, so get some slides back up here. So yes, we're Treasure Data. We're a CDP. So what is a CDP? There's a lot of confusion with it with regards to MarTech. I know there's a lot of similar sounding technologies. There was the CRM, then there was the DMP. Now we have the CDP. Is the CDP a CRM? It's a lot of confusion around it. But to answer that, yes, the CDP is very different than the CRM and the DMP. If I had to kind of say, simplify it, I would almost compare the CDP to a cloud database. But when we think of something like a database, what do we think of? Oh, it's so difficult. It's a huge project. It's going to take a long time to implement. We've got to hire more engineers. Implementing CDP is still going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's going to be easier than trying to unify all of that data in what was those database products of the past. So what it is it's this data infrastructure that's out of the box ready, has all these features and functionality to quickly plug in and bring in data from all of these channels. If we're talking about omnichannel, like the online data, the offline data, the other customer touch points like social media and more, unify it, and then become one foundation for building that omnichannel strategy. And so what we see is that brands and retailers that are using CDP technology, they're able to implement and start seeing value and start activating their first use cases, and maybe like as quick as maybe the 3-month mark with fewer technical resources rather than like a larger, longer term project. As Chris was starting to introduce at the beginning of the session today, especially the last couple years with everything that's gone on with the pandemic and more, it's really accelerated the need to communicate with customers more digitally. And now there's more and more digital touch points than ever. But also, the physical experience is still very important. But one challenge that we're seeing with this, big push to digital is that many times as marketers or strategists, we might be thinking in these individual silos of, okay, I have to optimize this channel, I have to optimize this other channel, I have to optimize the social media. And sometimes that can result in a very fractured experience. So maybe the messaging and the experience of one channel is extremely different as the customer transitions to the next channel. But at the same time, the modern customer is expecting this more personalized and seamless experience wherever they're interacting with the retailer and brand, whether it's online or on mobile or in store. They expect brands to know them and then deliver the experience that they want at the channel of their choice. So really, CDP is looking to, take all those channels, unify it, and put the customer back at the center of the full experience. And how exactly does the CDP do that? So really the omnichannel journey with CDP starts with that integration aspect. So CDPs, many times they're equipped with many out-of-the-box connectors. So to plug into these touch points quickly. If there's not a connector present, there's usually still other ways to work together to get the data into the cloud and the CDP. But before the age of the CDP, when we were going back to, say, building something on like a cloud or data lake, we would be, it would be on the responsibility of, say, the brand to build these individually. But now it's equipped with the functions to start bringing in data quicker. So we're bringing in the data, we're building a unified profile. Then this, within the CDP, this is going to be the center for all of the customer insights across the full omnichannel experience. So within this, all the data has been collected. We can manage the consent and privacy of all of the data. As we see regulations coming in all across Asia, all across the globe, and customers are expecting data to be managed responsibly. That's one other value add of centralizing all the data in one place. Then we can also use machine learning to gain insights, for instance, predicting the types of products customers are interested in, the channel preferences of choice, or even maybe if they prefer something like e-commerce or coming in store to make their purchase. And then, with these insights, we begin crafting the experiences and the omnichannel experiences. And then the segments and the data goes back out to all of the customer touch points from the CDP to really deliver on these experiences. And also, CDPs are designed to have a friendly user interface. So with regards to segmenting and creating these experiences, they can be done by, say, a marketing team who, whether or not they know how to code. Also, we see more and more CDPs being used by, say, sales teams and customer service teams, to better be able to serve those customers, say, in store when somebody visits. And so, what we're looking to do is to really centralize all of the touch points across the full omnichannel experiences, and then beginning to tailor and deliver value at each of those individual steps. Early on the stage, in the awareness stage, maybe a customer, is starting to interact with us mainly digitally, maybe through our digital ads that we're doing. Perhaps by joining data from, across the full spectrum, we can begin optimizing and improving the conversion rates of those. Also, realizing cost reduction, where we're trying to send less messages, but more the right messages to the right customers through the channel of their choice. And then also by centralizing the data, we can begin to understand all the preferences, such as like now, digitally, there's lots of ways to meet the customer. Some customers may prefer to make their purchases in store. Some customers may prefer e-commerce. Some customers may go to the store, check out the products, then come back and purchase on a mobile app or e-commerce. All of those options are okay. It's about trying to understand all of our customers better, and then trying to craft the experience that's right for each and every one by having all of the data from all of the channels of the full omnichannel experience centralized. And so with that, we can get into a few case studies. So we've brought a few case studies of users of Treasure Data CDP. and to explore some things that real brands and retailers are doing specific to omnichannel. So first case, one CDP user is Parco. Parco is a shopping center, like a department store. It's one complex with lots of individual tenants that are inside. They really are focusing on creating this place, this experience to deliver a great shopping experience. And we have a quote here from them. It touches on, a point that Chris was highlighting, earlier in today's presentation, that, really the digital and physical worlds, they're not in competition. That the future is going to be a hybrid of them both. So I don't think that e-commerce and physical stores conflict with each other. We have to embark on a journey to find a way to use digital and our physical stores to increase the customer engagement. And so Parco used CDP to start crafting a new omni-channel experience. It's going to combine the physical and digital world for their customers. And how they started embarking on this was one thing that they looked into was launching a mobile app. So they have a mobile app. It's called Pocket Parco. It's designed to be used both out of store and in store. It's combining their offline data and their online data. They had data from Parco user cards that had some of their offline sales data. Now they're being able to track more preferences through the app and then deliver these new experiences through it. And a couple ways that they're doing this with the mobile application was, so they have a function that's called Clip. And they're using the app as a way to deliver their owned media. So they have articles that they're creating and curating for different brands and products that are within Parco stores. Users of the app can follow the individual brands and products that they like, and they clip them to follow them. Then Parco can see the interests of the customers. As customers are then coming and visiting the physical stores, if someone makes a purchase of a product, they can now correlate those digital efforts to the physical purchase, and also track which unplanned purchases are taking place. And this is giving a greater understanding to both the preferences of the customers, but in addition to that, it's also helping them gain a understanding of those preferences while also deliver some new experiences. And it also combines with another function called Walk. Now, what Walk is it's kind of a gamification of the shopping experience. So as someone enters a Parco store, they can opt in to start tracking their steps. So as someone takes steps through the shopping store, they earn these coins. These coins can be exchanged for coupons. And you can also check in at the stores that you are shopping at. And if you check in and make a purchase, you can receive a survey through the app. If you complete the survey of the shopping experience at that individual tenant, you can get rewarded with, say, 100 coins. And this experience is designed to encourage customers to explore, discover new brands, discover new products. Also location-based offers can be utilized too that are tailored to the customer. So it is really providing this kind of new blended experience. Perhaps at home, the customer is clipping and following those products that they're interested in. They're coming through and exploring the stores with the walk function. And all of this is helping Parco gain a greater understanding of the customers and then start optimizing the experience and the communications that they're giving them based on that understanding. And some results that they realized after implementing this was that purchase amounts of users of that walk function increased by 20 to 30% within the first 6 months. And also, as that, it's kind of designed to encourage customers to explore, the number of tenants and shops within Parco locations that customers visited increased by 2. And this app has also become a way to communicate with their customers, all the time and deliver customer service every day. And in the future, they're looking to also implement some additional features to actually help and assist and be used by the shop staff that are in the individual stores. And so a lot of this, all of this is being possible by taking various data and centralizing it in one place. The application data, the offline data. Parco is also bringing in other kinds of data like weather data on how that is affecting like the retail trends, and centralizing it in CDP, and then creating these experiences there and delivering it back through the channels. So that's one retail case. Moving on to another omni-channel case for CDP. Subaru purchasing a vehicle. When we look to like the vehicle purchase experience, in the past, it was like one of those real pure physical experiences, right? We would go into the dealership, we would look at the cars, we would hop in the cars and test drive multiple cars, then go to other dealerships and try out all the different brands. And that physical experience was really, really at the forefront. But what we're seeing is a real big shift in the car purchase experience. And more and more customers are taking more digital steps earlier in the journey before actually taking a step into that showroom or dealership. Trying to do more comparisons online via social media, visiting websites, comparing cars, looking at user reviews. The digital journey is now much, much longer. And by the time someone visits that physical space, they're much more closer to that purchase point than, say, they have been in the past. So this is kind of a challenge that we've been seeing in a lot in the automotive industry was, okay, how can we really bring this experience together, understand the full experience across digital channels? If we're going to be investing more in digital, how do we attribute that like ROI back to those physical purchases? And if somebody like, if we're going to be creating digital ads, can we predict who's likely to purchase a vehicle? And maybe have that, affect the kinds of marketing that we're doing, and maybe even help the salespeople that are on the floor. And so with lots of different touch points, talking about channels both in the digital and physical worlds, Subaru looked to CDP to really bring all this together. And from the awareness stage and those digital channels, bringing that data in, even say, like, I know as of right now, there's less of those like auto shows going in, but even auto shows, there's the potential to collect interest data. As users are visiting and comparing vehicles on the site or the mobile app, that journey can be understood. And those insights can help be fed down to the dealership, and then develop a loyalty program that's more tailored to the interests of the customer to best serve them and keep them, a customer for future vehicle purchases, as well as, helping them out with running their services and more. So, a lot of these prior to CDP used to be individual silos that we see here, but all of that has been unified to really understand the full experience. A slightly different case that we have here is another retail case, Stripe International. So Stripe International, they have many, many different retail brands, a lot of lifestyle brands that they own. One challenge that we see with companies that own many different brands is a lot of times those brands themselves exist in individual silos. Maybe those brand sales is locked with the brand. Maybe there's social media that's individual to that particular brand. And you know, what that can lead to is a lot of like excess marketing by doing maybe large amounts of ad spend across brands when it could be more tailored to the individual needs, or trying to identify cross-brand promotion opportunities. That can be challenging if we're working with silos. So what Stripe was looking to do was, one, centralize all of that data in one system, optimize the communication and the marketing and the promotions to be more tailored to the brands and products best fit for the right individual, but taking a step further and going beyond just marketing, but looking at things like operations and procurement. So if we have a lot of data, how can we start looking at, say, things like procurement and machine learning to predict things like what are the right product mixes for physical retail stores? What are the right inventory amounts for those products to help try and make sure that the customer, when a customer visits a retail store, they have the right product that they're interested in and it's in stock. Because I mean, if we're talking about retail customer experiences, probably one of the most frustrating experiences is to going into the store and can't find what you're looking for, or it's not in stock. Right. And additionally, you know, they have a lot of excess costs with inventory. So maybe one store would have extra of one product. Another store would have to call them up and say, hey, can you send me some of this? It would be packed up and shipped over. And that was very, very expensive. So utilizing machine learning, first, it requires a lot of data and a variety of data. So, you know, we can't, it's difficult to have really effective machine learning utilizing purely just one of those channels. But if we have a lot of data and a variety of data from many different channels, then we can start effectively realizing value. So what Stripe is doing is they're utilizing data from their physical, like in-store purchase data. They've merged that with their online data and their promotional data that they're doing. They're bringing in additional data. I guess, you know, one big trend that we do see in retail is the usage of weather data to start creating machine learning models within the CDP to optimize the procurement. And some results that they found was around 220,000 savings in costs after doing the procurement optimization. And, you know, in addition to this, by unifying their brands, they're able to create tailored and personalized communications and, you know, deliver those omni-channel communications that are more tailored to them, whether they're interacting online, digitally, or in the physical store. You know, I think that as we're looking at the omni-channel journey, one initial step can be thought of as just marketing, but there's a lot of other potential too, and a lot of other potential value by even going beyond just the marketing and looking at things like how can we improve the sales team, the service team, even operations like we're seeing here, and more. So that was, you know, a few case studies and an overview, and very much thank you to Chris for sharing the great insight on the trends that ADA is seeing across Asia. If anyone would like to learn a little bit more about trends in omnichannel in Asia and see if some additional details on some of the case studies that we went through today. I invite you to download a PDF that we're launching right here and now. So you would be the very first people to see it. You can access it here by scanning the QR code that you can see on the screen. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. But we still have some time left. With the time left today, would like to pick up some questions, and we'll have some Q&A and a bit of a open discussion. So if anyone has anything else they'd like to ask, I invite you to please place it, ask it in the chat or the Q&A function below, and we'd be happy to discuss. So already have some questions. So let's dig into it. So let's see.
So I think I can probably answer these two, Sean, to get us started for sure. So I think they're basically different versions of the same question, I think, really, which is, how do you get started? And I think typically what we find with brands that we work with is that usually starting with a POC in a particular area is really helpful, right? So that could be at the very top level, where if they've got everything in place, we use a CDP and we do a POC on that, and we build it, we get some data points, and we show how using a CDP can obviously drive a better outcome from a data perspective and a loyalty perspective. If they don't have all these channels, it's usually about doing a pilot to show them that, because it's absolutely correct here. It's like a lot of brands maybe are not ready to take the risk, or they don't want to make a massive investment off the bat. So it's really about doing a lot of sort of little steps at a time and sort of just getting started. So yeah, is there any other questions from anyone else who would like to ask? Very open, me and Sean, to answer anything you wish to talk about.
Yeah, very happy to answer more. I guess to add on a little bit more to the previous question. Yeah, where to start, it's such a broad question. And I think the challenge is that there's just so many different kinds of use cases and to start with regards to trying to begin doing some personalization, trying to join the online and offline experience a bit. But I think, we just need to dive in there, choose one thing, get in there, give it a test, see the results, celebrate those results, begin also, omnichannel, it's going to touch a lot of teams. So that's another big challenge, is that, a lot of times, not just the data itself, but the departments and the organization is siloed. But if maybe someone wants to jump in and start, a data project and utilizing data to maybe join a few of those channels or touch points together, activate a campaign, see some value, then maybe become an ambassador to other departments. That's one way we see it start, that kind of snowballs into larger and larger use cases. So it's a great question. Thank you very much. Let's see, I think I saw another question come in. Actually, yes, more questions coming in. Thank you very much. Maybe I can take this next one I see. If we have a CDP, do we still need a DMP? That's a great question. Kind of, I was mentioning the confusion on the technologies earlier. As of right now, like the CDP is not a replacement for the DMP. So what we do see is that in brands and customers using the two kinds of technologies together. The DMPs are more focused on that anonymous third-party data. CDPs are focused more on first-party data. But, like a common case that we see is maybe we target some new acquisition through the DMP, we join some new data in the CDP, then have a much stronger, say, retargeting campaign afterwards. But I think as we, look towards the cookieless world, first-party data is going to be even more important. So I think that utilizing a CDP and a DMP, if you're already using a DMP, is a good consideration. So great question. Maybe here's another one. What is the biggest challenge in successfully deploying a CDP? Chris, do you have any insight? If not, I can.
So I think the key thing we see is like any technology, it's all about why you got that technology. So technology by itself isn't useful. What's useful is how you utilize it. So what's the business case for it? What are you going to achieve with it? What are the segments? Are you focused on lifetime value? Are you focused on loyalty? Are you focused on connecting, the physical and the digital? Are you focused on a particular part of the journey, right? And so the key thing we find with a lot of technology, and CDP is actually quite common for this, is that if you define what that strategy is, then it allows you to, on a very granular level, go through the steps you need to do. So, what are the data that we need to collect? How do we want to integrate it to enable that core objective, right? So a lot of the clients that we've talked to are, or we do CDP with, it's either, they want to do stuff like cross-brand selling, for example. So there's a very clear objective there, or they want to connect physical and digital. So you really need to sort of bring that sort of business strategy and the data piece with the technology piece, which is why it's so important to work with a great CDP product and the actual partner as well to sort of bridge those two together. So we walk into a lot of clients and usually they've done one or the other. So they've got the strategy without the product or the product without the strategy. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for to the audience member asking the question. Thanks, Chris, for the great answer. Another question, can Treasure Data collect like social media data, engagement data, and join it to the CRM data? Yes, it can. Now, I should also mention that with regards to say some of these platforms like social media, and usually there's certain kinds of data that they will provide. So if we look at something like Facebook, then it would be more of that campaign level data based on your marketing campaigns that you're doing. So when we look at these various platforms that we're integrating with this with the CDP, that data can be joined, the data that's allowed it to leave the platform, usually based on the campaigns that you're doing, can be brought back into the CDP and joined to the CRM data. So, one thing that we see, like the difference between the CRM and the CDP, many times just the CRM alone only provides you a limited amount of data, right? So it's trying to gain that full understanding by stitching the data together from all of these different sources together to gain that understanding. Great question. Thank you. Let's see. Another question. Do you think CDP and tracking customer lifetime value is relevant for the real estate industry? Yes, still is. I think we focused a lot on real estate today, but it is relevant. These omnichannel is something that's touches many different industries. And we do have, us as Treasure Data, we do have customers in real estate. So trying to optimize the communications, deliver the right message to the right individual, and trying to increase the customer lifetime value is, something that's shared across industry.
I think where it's also, just to add on what Sean said there, I think where it's really interesting in real estate is that a lot of real estate companies are mixed use. So you're talking to, someone who might lease an office, but they might also buy a house from you. They might also interact with you in a mall. And so I think where CDP can really play a really interesting piece is sort of stitching that consumer as they turn from an employee to a consumer to a homeowner, and sort of pulling all that data together. And that's where you'd also look at the lifetime value side as well, like really trying to look at it from a, breaking it down. It's the sort of similar situation that you find in a telco between a small business owner, a consumer, and a sort of a business to business. So I think that's another interesting space is like trying to break that down.
Yeah.
Across the different type, the way you interact. And if you can build a loyalty, then obviously you can sell to them, whether they're going to buy a house from you, or they're going to lease an office as an employee, or they're going to shop in your mall. You can still build that relationship to them.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you very much to the guest for asking the question. Here's another great question that we get a lot. There's a lot of confusion on marketing technology, right? And there's a lot of companies are throwing their hats in the ring, saying that they're CDPs, and how, with regards to all of these CDPs, all these like marketing tech, everyone's saying that, we need this technology now for omnichannel. How do we know which is the right one to go with? Do you have any thoughts, Chris?
So can you just repeat that question again? Because I couldn't see it in front of me.
So how should, when looking at technology for omnichannel and CDP, how should we choose the right product? All right.
So I think, again, this comes back to the requirements. I think CDP, is a big word, but I think it's, and sorry, how do I explain this? So it's a big word, but it really comes down to the sort of the use case that you need, right? So really, first of all, it comes down to, do you have a data problem, or do you have a content problem, or do you have a personalization problem? So it's trying to work that out first, right? Because obviously maybe you don't need a CDP up front. Maybe you need a website, or you need more personalization or more marketing, right? So I think what it comes down to is really first understanding how are you going to use this data. I think there's some other questions in here about data lakes, for example, and there's also questions around automation and things like that, right? So the CDP becomes a really powerful way to bring everything together, right? But if you don't have anything to bring together, then you're probably not yet ready for the CDP. So usually what we find with clients is, our brands is when we meet them, there's usually a couple of different scenarios, right? The first one is they have quite a complex stack. They maybe have a data lake. They maybe have, a CMS. They have a CRM system, etc. And then a CDP becomes a really good way to sort of pull some of that stuff together and get more value from it. And in that case, you need the CDP. We go to other clients who don't really have a proper, personalized sort of, digital platform, like a DXP or whatever. And a CDP might actually be too big a stretch for them at this stage. So then it's about working out a journey of where they start from. And typically they might start from a research piece, do some POCs around CRO or loyalty, and then build up to a CRM to a CDP piece. So, and I think also it's about finally also looking at, asking those questions. It's also really around getting down to your use cases, right? So you can have people who say, they have a particular feature, but it's not just about the feature, it's about how it applies to your business. So there's a question in here, for example, about real time, right? Where obviously a CDP is much more real time than, other solutions that might call themselves CDPs, but aren't really CDPs. So it's really about just doing a lot of research and asking those questions, and then, working with a neutral partner to try to guide you through that, and viewing it as a transformation piece, not viewing it as buying a particular solution or a silver bullet that will solve all your problems.
Yeah, awesome. I couldn't have wrapped it up better myself, Chris. Thank you. I think to add on that, and I guess, coming from the CDP space and focusing on CDP, clearing up, some of the confusion and what we should be thinking about when selecting a CDP. I think some things that you should be considering is one, the flexibility. So, I mean, the channels, especially if we're talking about omnichannel, the channels that customers are interacting with are just increasing very rapidly. So increased during the pandemic. Looking to the future, there's going to be more and more ways to interact with our customers, especially if we're thinking in terms of IoT. We've got AR starting to make its way into retail and more. And so this is infrastructure that's meant to be used over the long term. So you should be selecting a CDP that's going to be very flexible to take in any kinds of data. Sometimes it's a little bit more in a bit of a walled garden, and it should be scalable because the amount of data that's being generated is increasing, and it should have have a lot of variety of functions to manage privacy, consent, security, machine learning, more and more and more. I like to explain more, but I know that we're just about at time today. So yeah, there's still a lot more questions, but thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. But hey, if you would love to discuss CDP more, or revisit these questions or see even more cases, I would very much invite you to reach out to both either Chris and I, or even ADA and Treasure Data. We would be very happy to meet you together, and we can have a deep dive session to discuss these questions and more. So I see a lot more questions. Very sorry that we couldn't revisit them all today, but hope that we can still continue the discussion with you. So with that, we can start wrapping up. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking some time out of your day to visit us. And Chris, thank you very much for joining us too and offering all the great insights.
Yeah, and I think for any of those who have been having trouble accessing the white paper, the link is in the chat. So download it. It's a really nice piece, and definitely reach out to us if we can be of any help. So have a great rest of day and rest of week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.